This is just a test shot. This shot has nothing to do with the actual video. It is only a test. Hello there, it's the Loudmouth 37, and once again we're going to try something different for once around here. Right behind me, as you can see, is the infamous Doctor Who shelf, which, as of one of my most recent videos, is now all complete in terms of the classic collection. This is all the classic stories that have been released on DVD are all on this shelf. And I don't know, this is just kind of a new idea. So I decided I wanted to watch all of Jon Pertwee's stories again. Like, that's not uncommon for Whovians. Jon Pertwee's era is a very strong era, and I just felt I hadn't really seen any in a long time. So I started from the beginning, and watching them chronologically, as opposed to what I obviously used to do, which was just as and when I got the DVD, so it was always very sporadic. Watching them chronologically is very, very interesting. So I thought I'd do a discussion on Series 7, or Season 7, which is Jon Pertwee's first season, which compromises of Spearhead from Space, Doctor Who and the Silurians, The Ambassadors of Death, and Inferno. And this series, watching it again, is probably, I'd argue, the most adult Doctor Who's ever been in its 53-year history. In terms of the tone, the style, the language of the text that's in the scripts, just everything seems a lot more catered for adult audiences, which obviously now watching from a 20-year-old perspective is quite interesting to watch. Yeah, let's dive in. Let's start with the one that kicks it all off, Spearhead from Space. Now this is the special edition DVD, and you can find this in the Mannequin Mania box set alongside Terror of the Autons. Some describe that this is the most essential transition Doctor Who has ever gone through. I mean, for a starters, this is the first story to be broadcast in colour. It's the first story to introduce Jon Pertwee's era. It's the first story to... well, not the first, but it's the first in a long trend that establishes the unit family, or in its early stages. So you have the Brigadier, Lethbridge Stewart, Liz Shaw as the Doctor's companion, and Sergeant Benton appears in some of these as well, though I don't think he appears in this one, not to my memory. But this is a very strong start to the season, guys. I mean, honestly, if you could... a really strong start story. Again, I think the whole adult tone helps, because this also introduces the Autons and the Nestine consciousness, which is a horrifying concept if you think about it. The fact that mannequin dummies can come alive is a pretty damn scary concept. It's really well executed here. Jon Pertwee is on form to begin with. Obviously he's got a bit of amnesia, he's a bit enigmatic, but it's a strong performance. Strong performances all around. I think what I want to try and do in these discussions is not give the game away, just give my recommendations. And to start with, this 4-part adventure to kick off the season is one of the best Pertwee stories and should definitely not be one any hardcore Whovian wants to miss out. Then moving swiftly on, we have Doctor Who and the Silurians. Now this is a 7-part adventure, and 7-part adventures appeared here and there in the black and white era, but this was the last season where 7-parters were really used, and it's very clear to see why. But before I get into that, this story introduced the Silurians, who again have been a lasting Who monster, most recently appearing in the form of Madame Vastra in Deep Breath in 2014, alongside Peter Capaldi's Doctor. This story introduces the Silurians, and it's an interesting faction because obviously half of them, or some of them including the original leader, are quite peaceful, whereas some of them want the human race wiped out because Silurians were here first. It's their planet, you know, it's alright. CSO, by the way, so CSO, for those who don't know, Colour Separation Overlay, think of it as a precursor to green screen. So before green screen, you had blue screen, and that basically, same concept, you superimpose things behind what's actually there. And it's not used too bad in this one. I mean, it's a key staple of Jon Pertwee and Tom Baker's stories, and there are hits and misses for sure, but this is a good example, I think. The main problem with this story, which is going to be a recurring theme along this season, I'm afraid, is that it's 7 parts. Because 7 25-minute installments might be alright in an original broadcast, like week by week. When you're trying to watch them all, though, it can feel like a bit of a long haul, like some some areas of padding. But to be fair, what they pad it out with is very interesting. There's the whole idea of the plague that starts slowly wiping out humanity. And what saves this is the actors. The actors in this, like the main cast, obviously, the unit crew, and all the supporting cast are great. And this is honestly, in my opinion, what saves this story. So, if you've got a lot of time on your hands, I would give it a watch, because just for the performances, the story, and just because now it's still strangely relevant. But yeah, definitely one to check out, but only if you're in for a long haul, because 7 episodes, and I don't know, I'd advise watching it all in one go, because watching it in bits in time can be a bit, you forget things. Then we move on to what I think would be the weakest example of this season, which is the Ambassadors of Death. Now, one thing I always try and point out as a Whovian, when I say a weak example, only in the sense of it just might not have had as much positive effect as the others. This is not a bad story, okay? I'm all against bad stories that get put out on the internet. This is not bad. So this one is centering on space, and obviously when this was filmed in late 1969, man had just touched down on the moon. So incredibly relevant, and it's all about the threat. What can we bring back to Earth from outside, and it's it aired during the Apollo 13 disaster. It obviously ended out fine, but yeah, you should look up on that if you want. The performances from the main cast are good. Some of the support I found a bit questionable, and this time the padding, in my opinion, is a bit less engaging than it was in Doctor Who and the Silurians. Although the car chase in episode 2, I think it's episode 2, where all the military vehicles chasing each other, is pretty damn impressive. So, and the ending is just a bit, okay, yeah, we're done. Which I've never been a fan of in Doctor Who. So, if you were honestly considering missing one, although if you're a Whovian, I don't see why you would, but if you were considering missing one of this season, probably miss the Ambassadors of Death. I'm so sorry if you can hear that awful screeching noise. I think my vinyl deck needs oiling. And now moving on to the final story of the season, Inferno. And this is often considered the strongest of the season, and in the Doctor Who magazine poll of 2014, which ranked the stories, this was voted the best story of Jon Pertwee's era. And honestly, I can highly back that up. This story is phenomenal. It's 7 parts, but that doesn't matter. It's like they took the good padding from Doctor Who and the Silurians, made it even better, and just put it all into Inferno. So the main concept in this, without giving too much away, is the Doctor's trying to get the TARDIS to work again, but he's also at this plant that's trying to drill to the core of the Earth, and there's a few problems going on in episode 1. But the Doctor's not really interested, because he keeps getting parred off by the scientists, so he's like, right, okay, fuck you, I'll just get my TARDIS and go in. But obviously that doesn't work, and what happens is it ends up sending him sideways in time to a parallel dimension. And this parallel dimension has the same plant still drilling to the core of the Earth, same people, but obviously they're all slightly characteristically different, and this is where it gets interesting. So the unit crew are there, but they're actually evil. The Brigadier is now the brigade leader with scar and eye patch to make him a bit more edgier. Liz is there also. She's got black hair now instead of red, ginger, whatever. And she's the section leader. So basically everyone's evil, which is a great dynamic for the actors to play, and they play it very well. And the majority of the story is set in this parallel world, and you really buy the Doctor's attempt. He's vying so much to get him to believe, I am from a parallel world, and because it's the first example that Doctor Who, I think, I could be getting this wrong. No, I think the first time we really see a parallel world in Doctor Who. Obviously they come back to it in David Tennant's era with Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel, but this is the first real example, and it's pulled off brilliantly. The cliffhanger to episode 6, which I won't reveal, is often revered as one of the best cliffhangers in Doctor Who history. And I have to agree. It is, simply put, one of the best cliffhangers in Doctor Who history. So for any Whovian, casual or hardcore, if you have not seen Inferno, you must go and see Inferno. It is a phenomenal story, not just for Jon Pertwee's era, but for the whole 53-year history of Doctor Who. The cast is on form, the model effects and the stunts are on form. Just everything about this story is top-notch, and I'd highly, highly, highly recommend it. I promise you will not waste your time. In discussion, This season, as I said, is very adult, which has its benefits and its downsides. Because I think I got lucky, because I didn't watch any of these stories at a particularly young age. The first one I watched all the way through was Spearhead from Space when I was about 15. So I was of an age where I could actually appreciate it. I'd say if you're a young viewer, or if you have young Whovians who are wanting to get into it, maybe let them watch other Pertwee stories or classic stories first before engaging with this season. Because especially with stories like The Ambassadors of Death, I think it could get a bit lost on younger viewers. But again, as I said, back then they were making it primarily for the adult audiences, and for that reason it works. It really works. I mean, again, it was a pinnacle time because the BBC were banking on it. I mean, if this season wasn't a success, we might not have Doctor Who as we know it today. It could have ended in 1970, drifted into cultural obscurity, but obviously it didn't. It worked. And the fellow Pertwee seasons, I think, mellow a bit more from the adult orientation that Season 7 started with. But Season 7 is a very strong season, and season. That's another point. Sean Connery. Bond. James Bond. James Bond had a massive influence on this style for the Doctor. I mean, John Pertwee is regarded as the James Bond Doctor. Lots more gadgets, more car chases, just action sequences. And again, for this season, it really works. And they mellow a bit over John Pertwee's era. But if that's what you're going for, a James Bondian style season with a James Bondian kind of lead character, then Season 7 is definitely the one to watch. So yeah, that's all I can really say on it really, just my general opinion on the stories without giving too much away. And it's just been an experiment, guys, just wanted to see how a discussion kind would work. I mean, let me know if you want me to do more discussions of fellow classic or even modern seasons, because I'd be happy to do them. Please let me know in the comments which seasons in particular you'd like me to focus on. So yeah, until the next time, goodbye my friends, goodbye.